Maupay na adlaw tayong Juan. Good day.
I am John Mark Vic Iagiman, an advocate in the preservation and promotion of Kinamigin history, culture, and arts, and a graduate of Master in Public Administration at Camiguin Polytechnic State College.
Before I start my presentation, allow me to share this short Kinamigin panugilon or literary piece.
Ing ilaki mambabadza ta mga tigkamiging, ha inikagihan na kinamiging, aber ko handi ag pailing, o kinamiging, tignima kadun ta kana kasing-kasing. This panugilon is a constant motivation for me to further actualize my personal advocacy.
To contextualize this research, I need to explain its current status. With the advancement of globalization and education, the local culture, including the Kinamigin dialect, had been further pushed into the margins of total culture loss.
In the latest assessment, Kinamigin dialect was categorized as threatened and slowly dying with only 10,000 native speakers left as of 2015, according to IPN.
Kinamigin speakers are constantly diminishing because they are afraid to be labeled as bakulos, ignorant, or tig-iraja from the hinterlands, which has been a communal experience for so long. This is just one of the underlying reasons I personally heard from the mouth of the native speakers why they discouraged and forbid their children to use Kinamigin. My experience in the field made me realize the need to seek for actions aimed at formulating a plan for the preservation of our dialect. Hence, this study was conducted. Knowledge, attitude, and practices on the preservation of the Kinamigin dialect basis for policy formulation. To strengthen this research, the language death theory was used. As explained, language death can only be avoided if language will survive amidst major changes such as voluntary or forced shift and challenges like loss of population faced by the speakers, and also through human interventions aimed at protecting, promoting, and preserving the current state of the dialect.
Conceptual framework directed the study to a deeper understanding as to how Kinamigin dialect be preserved by formulating plausible and realistic plan.
Quantitative approach using researcher-made questionnaire was applied, supplemented by the results of the focus group discussion, key informant interview, and participant observation.
This was conducted in the municipality of Sagay, Camiguin with the following participants and sampling technique.
The questionnaire used further underwent these processes. For statistical treatments, these were applied. At this point, the findings of the study shall be discussed. What is the level of knowledge, extent of attitude, and extent of practices on the preservation of the Kinamigin dialect? For the preservation of knowledge, DepEd was very much knowledgeable, while LGU and youth sector were under much knowledgeable.
For the overall total, it came out that on the level of knowledge, means of preservation ranked first, followed by background, uniqueness, role in the preservation, and problems in the fourth and the fifth rank.
To compare across sectors, the youth had the least AWM in all categories, hence the need to conduct symposia, community discussions, orientations, and other related programs to orient and educate the youth of their significant roles in the preservation of the dialect had been revealed. For the extent of attitude, all sectors were under very much agreed. As observed, under DepEd and LGU, all three categories, prestige, usefulness, and value, were under very much agreed level.
This implied that they had high positive attitudes towards the preservation of the dialect.
Focusing on the total AWM, value ranked first, while prestige and usefulness ranked second and third respectively. Also, it can be grasped that the three sectors with high accuracy and thoroughness clearly agree in all the information about prestige, meaning they were proud of it and they appreciate its usefulness as integrated in their daily conversations, and they value the dialect as part of their identity.
For practices, most categories were under much practice in all sectors. On the comparative level of practices by category, Kinamigin dialect is being practiced at home, consistently in rank 1 in all sectors, under very much practiced. This clearly implied that the dialect is functional in the basic unit of the society. Community category had been consistent in rank 2 under much practiced. Social media ranked 3rd, much practiced, since English and other major languages and dialects were more advantageous in their posts, while school or work ranked 4th under much practiced.
The results clearly suggested that though they have been using Kinamigin as part of their common and daily conversations beyond the parameters of their respective homes, especially in school and work-related environments, Kinamigin is rarely practiced. The result further revealed that Kinamigin was less used in social media posts and advocacies, the trend of the generation. Added to this, the wide influence of other dialects and formal languages taught in the academies continue to threaten the dialect as it dominates the social facets, leaving only little space for Kinamigin to be practiced and developed both academically and professionally. Found as a major challenge, this needs to be addressed knowing the demise of its native speakers and the functionality of the dialect had already been limited to specific niches of society. As a major task, this demands urgency. Is there significant difference in the level of knowledge, extent of attitude, and extent of practices on the preservation of the Kinamigin dialect? As supported by the statistical results in the table, it reflected that there was significant difference on the level of knowledge and extent of attitude. Hence, null hypothesis was rejected, while there was no significant difference on the extent of practices. Hence, null hypothesis was accepted. What are the challenges encountered by the participants' level of knowledge, extent of attitude, and extent of practices on the preservation of the Kinamigin dialect? For the problems on their personal level, it came out that they rather speak Bisaya, Cebuano, English than use Kinamigin when conversing with others. When they speak Kinamigin, nobody understands and they are not well versed. These categories were under occasionally true. For the problems in the community, they say that occasionally they don't speak Kinamigin, especially in the presence of visitors, and they do not use Kinamigin dialect in public places because they prefer to speak in Binisaya or Sinubuanon. While for problems encountered in the school or workplace, it came out that occasionally Kinamigin is not taught, spoken in school, workplace. The Kinamigin dialect is not integrated in school's curriculum or workplace. The research revealed that there were various problems encountered occasionally by the native Kinamigin speakers in the personal, community, school, and work levels. The focus group discussion and the key informant interview enriched discussions and revealed that Kinamigin dialect in those days was not only concentrated in the municipalities of Sagay and Ginsilliban as emphasized in the previous studies. However, their number at present is waning in Catarman and Ginsilliban. Age and knowledge about the dialect revealed to be interconnected. The elderly people, 56 and up, were very much knowledgeable as directly observed in their fluency. Ages 41 to 55 years old in the community were very much knowledgeable. However, speakers under this age bracket naturally mix their dialects. While 30 to 40 years old, the educated generation were considered as knowledgeable. However, they were more likely to use Binisaya. They admitted that though they know the dialect, they do not teach it to their children. The same findings Bongado emphasized in his study. This reason caused a wide generational gap between the speakers and the non-speakers in terms of their knowledge of the Kinamigin dialect. For the less knowledgeable generations, it came out that they use Binisaya because it is a dialect of the Sagajat or the lowland, one used in the schools, and because either their mother or their father doesn't know or use Kinamigin dialect at home. This culture loss had been the result of various personal experiences of discrimination, especially of the people coming from the poblacion, the negative attitude of other people towards Kinamigin speakers, and the belief that Kinamigin is an inferior dialect. Conscious of being misunderstood or afraid to be ridiculed, language shift to Binisaya had been very common, especially when they encounter unfamiliar persons, and the word ikagayha, ashamed, had always been attached to the dialect. Further, Kinamigin had been found functional at home and partly in the community level, but other than that, they usually shift their dialect to Binisaya because of their experience of ostracism, ridicule, harassment, and other verbal humiliations that further push them to refrain or abandon the Kinamigin dialect. Today, there are already 5 categories of speakers. Category A, the fluent Kinamigin speakers. They speak Kinamigin dialect purely and fluently. However, in the presence of the youth, they tend to speak Binisaya for them to be understood. Category B, the bilingual fluent speakers. Circumstances like education and working area encourage this group to practice or to speak Binisaya. Category C, the occasional speakers. They understand Kinamigin, but they seldom practice it since there were non-native speakers at home. Category D, the millennial mix and match speakers, where sinugbuanon fluent speakers. In the middle of a sentence or phrase, they integrate or insert Kinamigin terms or words because of limited knowledge. Category E, the silent speakers, were those who understand and know little about Kinamigin and do not speak nor use the dialect because they are more oriented with Bisaya. They believe that the establishment of the poblacion, the experience of discrimination, the negative attitude of the people towards the native speakers, and the belief that Kinamigin is an inferior dialect had greatly contributed to the demise of the native speakers. The native speakers believe that Kinamigin still has a future and will not die as commonly feared. Also, they knew that in the future, there will be changes in the structure, though few terms and words will persist for long periods of time without alteration. What action plan can be implemented to preserve the Kinamigin dialect? Kinamigin can still be saved if correct and proper measures will be done. Also, if the LG will spearhead in the promotion and preservation processes with the support of the Department of Education through its IPED programs and various school-related activities.
As concluded, based on the participants' level of knowledge, extent of attitude, and extent of practices, there is a future for Kinamigin, and it will not die as others have predicted it. However, changes will occur in time, in its structure, and in the use of other terms.
It will no longer be like how it is used today by the speakers of this generation, as it will develop just like any other living dialect or language, though some out of practical use will be retained.
Hence, there is a need to fully implement and institutionalize the Indigenous Peoples Education IPED to reintroduce the local culture and to strengthen the integrity of the dialect. On the other hand, the local government unit, in collaboration with the Department of Education, must allocate local funds for the various programs and activities and spearhead all the preservation endeavors. This study serves as an eye-opener to all the Kamigignans and to these major offices.
To the National Commission for Indigenous Peoples, the Komisyon ng Wikang Filipino, the National Commission for Culture and the Arts, the Province of Camiguin, and the Provincial Tourism Office through its Council for Culture and the Arts, that our dialect is at the brink of extinction.
Hence, there is a need to immediately address this concern by reassessing its status and identifying major solutions to revitalize and save the dialect. For I cannot stand to see that 20 years from now, this dialect would naturally die.
Yes, it is important to preserve this in printed and electronic materials, but it is more important to preserve it by using it as a medium of communication and safeguarding it in its natural oikos or home. Bariyak Cebuano nag-ikakita sinubuanon, Kubulano nagbinulanon, Izak kamiging non, Nutakanak pagkabata daw takanak kasing-kasing, Kamiging kanak intimaan, daw kinamiging kanak inikagihan, Haato inikagihan, dakol tuod na salamat.